What's going on, everybody? Doc, Average Gamer Guys, back at again. More Escape from Tarkov action. And jumping into another episode of Let's Talk Tarkov. So, if you haven't seen this before, kind of a one-on-one, whoever's watching this, thoughts from the doc on Tarkov. What's been going on? Some news, some different things. And we're going to chat today. We got a couple of topics that I want to spend a little bit of time talking about, so try to lay those out up front. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about Scav Bosses and their spawn rates. Going to talk a little bit about tasks as it relates to that. In addition, I certainly want to touch on the updates with the backend server, adjustments and performance updates, and the different things that they did. Few times. It's been a big discussion over the last couple of episodes of this, as well as just a couple other things Tarkov related as we're jumping into it. So hopefully this is a good and interesting conversation for you when I share my thoughts. A little Sunday edition is probably when this is going to be going up too. Feels like a pretty good video to throw up on a Sunday, so we'll see if we keep that cadence going forward. Again, not going to do these every week, but whenever they feel appropriate, I think we'll throw one up, and you guys and gals have somewhat been enjoying it and some of the conversation in the comments, so I really welcome that. Really welcome any feedback or any other topics that you want me to touch on. You can throw in the comments below, but without further ado, let's jump in. Let's chat about a few things. All right, so first things first here, and this is just at the top of my mind, has been Scav Bosses. Scav Bosses, specifically related to the Scav Boss quests that lovely Mr. Jaeger gives you. If you're not familiar, there is the Huntsman Path quest line, which has kind of a branch point with Sanitar in it, which actually is a really interesting, just like total side comment. I don't know why he's not just like in the path of the bosses. I don't know. I get that killing him is a branch point for therapists, so that's probably a big reason why, because they wanted to make it available that you didn't have to. It just seems like when that quest comes up, if you kill him, well, I guess you can't progress the quest if you don't kill him, but you should have to do one of the two things to, I don't know. Anyways, just a random thought I had, but Huntsman Path is a set of quest line where you basically have to work through the bosses. You start with Rashala, then you go to Killa, then Sturman. Now we get into Tagilla with Factory Chief, and then we go over to Gluhar and the minions, I do believe. So there's a couple other things in there, but that's generally the progress plan. The issue I have as we get into this discussion, I don't know if anybody else has felt this wipe. Tagilla was a tough run for me last wipe, just finding him. The other bosses were a little bit frustrating, but Tagilla has typically been the worst. I think in large part because with the factory raid, you're getting into PvP, and then you got to hunt him down. And obviously there's not a ton of places that he can hide or he's going to be. The difference ends up being is that when you get into the raid, you have to basically kind of wipe factory in order to get a chance to fight him. That's not always true. Depending on what side he spawns on or where he ends up spawning, you can actually maybe kill one player and they get an opportunity to fight him. The issue I have is this is a quest line. There's more to this, and this blocks the ability to do. Here's what I don't like about this Huntsman Path quest line, and this is kind of in general to tasks overall, is I don't think that this should be locked behind previous kills. I would love to see Huntsman Path, like basically the whole path, open up, and there can be some branching points. So let's say you have to kill Rashala first and then they want you to go in and kill the guards. No problem to that, right? Because that forces you to go in, not forces you, but encourages you to go in and then go to customs multiple times. Same thing with Gluhar and the guards. Same thing even with Sturman and the guards. They could do something similar. What I would like to see, though, is once you get to a certain point in Huntsman Path, all of the bosses open up. Because the struggle I'm having right now is literally going in to find Mr. Tagilla. I'm going to swap over to something here that I wanted to show, which is the totality of, as we know it from the Escape from Tarkov wiki, how often these different bosses spawn. And this is, in and of itself, part of the issue. previously the issue with some of these bosses spawning at a higher rate was the fact that they didn't want them to be farmed. They didn't want you to be able to go in, kill them, go in consistently at the beginning of the wipe, farm the crap out of them, get all the good gear and the good ammo, and then run out. Now, granted, that is a possibility if you don't balance their spawn rate correctly, and you also don't want to put it in so that they're so high that new players go in and are running into Killa every wipe, or every raid, and then they die and then they get pissed off. You don't want that either, so there's a fine balance. The problem I have is there's a quest line, and people want to, in general, progress their quests. I think actually the Huntsman Path quest line is one of the more fun ones that I think people, while it can be frustrating, enjoy, because you go in and you get to kill the boss, and then you get the loot and the reward, and then there's rewards after, and the rewards for Huntsman Path are pretty good. Like, you think Gluhar's is a weapons case. That's fantastic. That's great. It's great for stash management. That's great for any different type of player. The problem I have is finding these guys. My personal opinion is they should all be in the like 30-ish% range. Every third raid you go into, you should have a chance to find this boss. Now, granted, that's per raid on the spawn chance, so there's some more math to it, but in general, that's where these percentages come to. Tagilla is 19%. Now, granted, factory, a lot of PvP, very close quarters. You don't want him spawning all the time, because then he's just running down, destroying players with the sledgehammer. But he's got to be more accessible. And some of the argument out there will be, well, just go in and constantly run factory. I hate to say this, but that is not fun. It's not. It can be enjoyable sometimes. I don't mind going in and hitting factory 5 or 6 or 7 times, but I'm not joking you. I've run probably 12 raids. I've run into him once and he killed me. That's too many. Now, granted, should have killed him when I had the chance, but it's one of those things where that's going to happen. The bosses are going to kill you from time to time, even if you're a good player. And I'm not saying I'm a good player. So the frustration for me here is we need to find a better balance. Here's the other thing that's a little frustrating about Tagilla. You may not have known this, but typically, previously, he only had his wonderful Class 6 rig. They've given him this one now, too. So the argument about farming him too much, my argument is that nobody is getting super excited for any of these weapons. AKS is great, usable, sure. It's not modded very well. Nobody, except maybe Sloth, is running this Saiga, right? This MP155 is cool. RPK, again, arguably pretty cool. Those are some solid weapons, I guess. This is a very low spawn chance. I don't think I've ever run into him when he's had this. Mostly it's the Saiga and this, and I have seen an RPK once. So what is the issue here, right? Oh, then you're going to tell me headwear. Got it. Class 5 face shield. Totally understand. That would be the only argument I would see for not wanting him to be farmed. But in general, he doesn't even have this Class 6 armor anymore. So it's the same issue that we had with Killa in the previous, where they used to swap his armor out and gave him a different armor instead of the Class 5. I just don't see him being farmable and making it worth it. And again, yes, can he have some great ammo? Yes, he could have Eagle Nick. Or he could also have BT, which is still good, but it's certainly not, definitely not the, the most meta round that you'd be looking for. Same thing here. You can get some AP20s, but I've seen him have every class of weapon, of ammo here with this. So my point with this whole conversation being is I think we need to look at either adjusting the quest lines, because I think part of the fun for this game is getting the option to go in and run some different maps. Run a different experience depending on what you're doing, depending on how many people you're playing with, your squad or whatever, and then getting the opportunity to go in and hopefully have multiple quests on some maps as well. If you have a good progression and a good way to do that, that way you can find some opportunity. It's also really frustrating that you can kill these bosses prior to these quest lines being open, and then it don't count. As you can see here, boss raid cap, I've actually killed Tagilla, I think, twice already. Prior, when I was doing other tasks on factory, prior to getting this opened up. And again, you can make the argument, well, you need to push Jaeger, and then you need to just push these quests to get these open up. It just doesn't make sense to me at a certain point in that quest line. Let's open up all the boss kills. That way, as you're going through, if you run into them, you can get that quest line done. Because the spawn rates are so low for a lot of them, it can be really frustrating. Sherman's probably one of the easiest I've found, honestly, to run across. Very consistent. Everybody knows generally where he spawns. You can hear him from a billion miles away, and that's really nice. Other than that, Gluhar is kind of similar, but you can hear a lot of fighting on reserve, but depending on where you are, you may not even know. If you're underground and he's over in like the night buildings or the cave buildings, you probably have no idea that he's even on the map. So this is a little bit more of a rant, probably way longer than I wanted to spend on this topic. I just really think we need to relook at this. I know they plan to relook at the tasks and everything in here in general, but I would like to see some things open up a little bit more and just be smarter about giving the players options to be able to get some of these things done. I really do believe that having all of these, the main bosses opened up at the same time, would give you just the options to go fight who you wanted to go fight, go into whatever raids, and then if you're in the raid and you're like, oh shoot, I hear Gluhar over there, let's go get him, and you and your team or your squad can go push over there. You can try to get the kill, even if you've already got some other quests done. That just makes a whole lot of sense to me. So hopefully we'll see some tweaking. Let me know how your quest progress has been going. I'm really curious to hear from folks kind of how their wipe is going. Usually I do this near the end, but I'll show overall stats here. So about 430 raids in, we're level 45. 53% survival rate. That's very standard for me, especially as I've been pushing the quests. That's usually about how I end up. I did get a 10 raid survive in a row, which I think is the most. Maybe it's the most, or maybe 13 is the most. Definitely the most this wipe, obviously. I was able to get the guide done, and then also get a couple of wood survives as I was hunting Sturman, of all things. So not progressing too badly here. Pretty happy with the progress so far. Another big topic to spend a few minutes on talking about, queue times and backend server maintenance. Queue times have been awesome. So BSG, whatever you did, thank you so much. It worked. I know it put the game down a little bit. Tried to do some of the backend server maintenance while the game was up. That caused some of its own challenges, and then there was kind of a blackout period where the game wasn't accessible while they migrated and upgraded some infrastructure and did whatever they did in the background. I love to see that. Love to see that more consistently. Again, I've said this from the get-go, probably in both of the other 2 episodes of this that have gone up, is that I don't mind the queue times as long as they're reasonable and they help the game. And it's felt really good. Since backend server maintenance and whatever they did, it's felt really good. Queue times have been very, very reasonable. A couple hundred in the queue, goes like that, boom, you're in. Sometimes it gets stuck. No problem to just cancel it out and queue it back in. I have no fear now of closing the game and not getting back in. And even during prime time, it's really not been bad. So thank you, BSG. Nice work. Appreciate that. Continue to do that. The only, hindsight here being 2020. And obviously there's a ton of stuff that goes into the upgrades and all the different things that they did. But obviously it would have been nice to see that before their major update. But obviously it's very hard to anticipate for anybody out there. It is really hard to anticipate how many people are going to come back and how much hype they're going to get over any particular wipe or update. And granted, it's like, we look at it now and we're like, of course, look at all the stuff you did with the changes and you're wiping the game and new map. Like, you should have known, and I think they very much anticipated that. But obviously the game is like popping off, and has been ever since. And they did it the busiest time of the year to play video games, which is the holidays, which is great. It's great for everybody out there that got to play. However, hopefully they can just continue this, and this just becomes a regular thing that they're looking at, continue to upgrade, get things smoothed out on the back end, to make the enjoyable experience that Tarkov can be when it runs appropriately. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you're running into some bad queue times. Like I said, I've been in the hundreds, and I think whatever they did really did work. I haven't had a ton of in-game moving errors either. That is really frustrating, and I know frustrated a lot of players. you're moving stuff around in your stash, and you do this and you do that and you do this, and the next thing you know, you've got you know, things flashing, and then you get kicked out back to the main screen, and it resets it, especially after a raid, is really, really frustrating. But glad to see that that stuff hasn't completely gone away, but it is very significantly reduced, which is really, really nice. And then raid load times have been all right, no major issues there. So I think all in all, some really good stuff. The other thing that we didn't talk about, I don't think I talked about previously, is magazines in the old containers. This is kind of a hot topic. We talked about it on stream a little bit. I spent some time talking with Sloth about it. This again really doesn't impact me a huge amount. I was never a magazine in the old Gamma container anyways. From time to time, running some 60 rounders maybe, especially these bad boys or these bad boys might get thrown into a container. You know, I'd run one in, one on, one in the container as a typical loadout. But all in all, this is usually my normal setup for my Gamma with some ammo in here. And then it's just about swap outs. You've probably seen this in either the hardcore or really more so the escape series, swapping these things out to put more important and more valuable things in. I'm okay with the change, with one exception, the fact that, especially now, these 60 rounders or these 60 rounders are incredibly valuable. Incredibly valuable. You can't even find them. Now, there are a couple barters for them. One from Peacekeeper, which looks like 2 PCBs and a GM, which is very, very reasonable, by the way. Make sure you do this trade. As well as this other 60 rounder. I think there's at least one barter. Yeah, there's one barter from old Peacekeeper, which is a filter and 2 green bats. Woo! No thank you. Way too expensive. That's where I think magazines without ammo in it should be an option, or found in raid magazines might be a different way to solve that solution. That way you can get that item out and use it for future purposes. The other thought I have, and while I don't know that I'm the biggest fan of this, so I'll pitch this to everybody watching out there, is allow us to craft them. It's interesting to me that in the hideout, magazines is one of the few things that you actually can't craft. Think about it. You can craft heals, you can craft other barter items, you can craft these big air filters, you can craft rigs, backpacks, helmets, technically not armor at this point, which is, well, this is armor, so technically armor, this is armor. So you can craft armor, no good armors. What I think we're going to continue to see here is an update to lavatory. I would be a big fan of like a sewing station. That sounds really goofy and really silly, but I've pitched that before, and I've heard others pitch that. Throw this thing in right here and give us the option to take some materials, take some metal spare parts, take whatever the hell some of these armors are made of, the fabrics. Give us an opportunity. You can take from the lavatory some of these things, like maybe not the ripstop because you're kind of tearing it down, but honestly, that should still be your rigs, your backpacks, and you can move these kinds of things over to a sewing station that would give you an opportunity to then craft some armors. Then from the lavatory, because it kind of seems aligned to that, it's dealing with plastics and metals and things like that, maybe give us an option to craft some magazines. The only one that we can craft here is the 60 rounder. This was brought in because people complain that there's no way to get these dang things for that quest if you just don't run labs a lot, or you can't find raiders, and nobody can find damn raiders, although the raider spawn's been recently changed on reserve. BSG, thank you for that, by the way. Bumped it up to like 30% at the start underneath in the bunker, and then when you hit D2, 30%, and then there was a jump for hitting the button as well. So if you're trying to get your 50 raider kills, or even your raider kills underneath in the bunker, total side comment here, it took me probably about 7 raids to get my 5 kills underneath. Which wasn't bad, which was not bad. I was actually very, very happy with that. So, but let us craft some more of these things. Let us craft some 60 rounders, especially considering they're extremely expensive. You can't buy them now. You can certainly barter for them, but I think that gives an option. And then again, let's look at some other materials. I'm jumping all over the place today on this, but there are just so many materials and barter items that are just not useful for anything. Couple of folks, and we've spent some time talking about the idea that we need like a holistic look at the entirety of the economy. We need a holistic look at the entirety of all the barter items, and we need to figure out, and by we, I'm talking about BSG, there needs to be somebody dedicated to just taking a look and spreading some of that stuff out, right? The biggest complaint, one of the biggest complaints this wipe has been things like military corrugated tubes and green bats and hunting matches. When they've provided some scarcity, now it's these bad boys. I have 3 of them. I could be rich. I could be 3 million rubles richer. These used to spawn all over the place, and they're 45k. I think I talked about this in the last episode. Like, we need to find a way to balance some of these things out, where I don't have a problem with items being expensive or rare. I really don't. But comparatively, for those that have played a few wipes, Aces only being 130,000 rubles is like insane to me. Here's why though. These things aren't used for anything. You can barter for the fort armor, and you can use them here to upgrade just a couple of things in the hideout. Solar panels being the biggest one, because you need 4 of them. Now you need 10 of these, which again used to be only like 45k. By the way, this is a like between buying this 75,000 euros and the, I think when I looked, I needed 8 of these, 18 million rubles. That's crazy. Now, I'm not saying solar power shouldn't be expensive. That's not the argument here. The argument here is that some of these things are just not balanced well within the economy, as well as with their rarity. That's the problem I have. So I just think we need somebody at BSG, especially as we get closer. And this is all with the idea of, with it getting closer to this game coming out of beta and fully releasing and getting to quote unquote like stable state, we need things to be a little bit better balanced, right? Let the economy drive, especially the flea market. Let's let that drive the price, right? There's been a lot of discussion about flea market and the fees and how traders look at different items as well, barter items, and some of the, like, red key card, for instance, is like 1 million ruble. I don't know what it actually is. Therapist is crazy, but we need to relook at some of that, because the system of the flea market, especially the ability to barter things versus be able to buy them, and the fees that are associated to them, just make it to a point where some of the stuff is just inaccessible. And as things tweak in rarity, they will fluctuate in the flea market. That's to be expected. But another big thing that drives a lot of these is the barters from the traders, right? And that's a big driver for a lot of these different things. And when the difficult part I have is it's not fun to build a weapon for mechanic that costs you 5 million rubles because you can't get a 60 rounder. Actually, this is not a bad trade to be able to get this and get the 60 rounder if you need it. My big point here is, though, is we just need to look at what goes into these trades, how rare is that item, and what is that going to do, especially if it's a barter that gets sold out pretty consistently. I actually really like this Mark 16. I'm gonna do a video on this here pretty soon about using barter only weapons, so be on the lookout for that. We just need some work on the economy, and like I said, I think things should be reasonable, and players certainly are going to dictate where it is. But what I think BSG realizes, and they know, but anytime they release a barter or they put anything else in with a trader that is highly sought after, and we've changed the rarity on, you know, the different prices of things, or changed the rarity of different spawn rates of things in the world, that has huge impacts on the fluctuations. Like I said, this is a fantastic barter. If you need the 60 rounder, you need to go to the flea market and buy these things and get this, because that's the way to do it. This is just too expensive. How much are these still? You're talking, it's just too much. You're talking 500k just to get this PMag. Thank God you don't actually need it, but yeah, I don't know. We need an economist. We need a marketeer. We need somebody that can go and just understand that, and then again look at it. There's so many barter items that I just don't feel like have a huge value, right? Like, what are these used for? Why are they even in the game? Obviously, some of these things are streamer items, and those are all cool. You know what I mean? Some of these things are used for some decent stuff. A lot of them are tied at some point to some kind of quest, which is not bad. I totally understand that. But like these, they're used for hideout upgrade. A lot of the stuff is just used for hideout upgrades. I would just like us to take a look and hopefully get these things kind of sorted out. Again, metal spare parts, when they first came out, hugely expensive. Then they adjusted where they should be because they're used for a lot of things. Now look at what they say. These things are rare. See, I have no problem with these being rare. I don't. I really don't. Because if you're telling me you want to make some of the hideout upgrades expensive, that's fine. This is one way to do it. However, consider what this goes into before you adjust or determine the rarity at which this spawns in the world. This is only found on 3 maps. And that's fine. But again, these are going to stay 1,000,000 rubles. They will. People are going to continue to need them. They're used for some good stuff. You need them for some hideout upgrades. So I don't know. I would like to just, again, take a look at a few things here and see if we can't balance these things out, because barter items to me shouldn't be where you're spending a ton of your money outside of things like graphics cards, right? Iridiums, some of the stuff that is just generally expensive. But it's crazy to me, iridiums, these should be a lot more expensive, but they're not really used for anything. You've got a couple of barter items. Graphics cards, they always kind of settle around 550. That seems pretty reasonable for the most part. Actually, probably a little bit cheaper than last wipe, with the changes to them being inside of computers now and being easily findable, more easily findable, which is not a word. So this is probably longer than I wanted it to be and much more rambling, but definitely some things I wanted to talk about. So let me know what you think about boss spawns and task progression. I really do think there's some work to be done there, as just spreading some of those things out and seeing the spider web of tasks in completion, in totality, I think would be an interesting thing to adjust. Give players the flexibility to go to different maps, especially if you're having a bad day in Tarkov. I was having one of those a couple of days ago, and luckily it recovered, like late raid 20. I recovered from it by finding a found in raid LEDX from a scav run on interchange, and then found a violet key card like a handful of raids later on my PMC in woods. But give us some flexibility to go do that. I think that would be nice. And or tweak boss spawns and their rates to make some of those things a little bit more accessible. And again, flea market adjustments. Nice job on back-end server maintenance. And that's kind of just the totality of things to talk about here in Tarkov. So, like I said, do appreciate all the support. We've got a hardcore series. We've got our escape series. We've got some other stuff coming up. We just did a lighthouse task guide, so take a look at that if you're jumping into lighthouse. I know for me, I waited for a little while. One, to let the map kind of like settle out and see if we could get some performance updates. Two, I just wanted to get all those tasks done in one fell swoop, and it actually worked out pretty good. I was able to do a lot of it in just a handful of raids. So check that out. More content coming. Again, going to be posting these randomly whenever they seem appropriate or we get any big news to talk about. And I hope you're enjoying it. Really look forward to, again, comments down below. Let me know any of your thoughts on anything that we covered here. Like, comment, subscribe, as always. If you're not subscribed and you like the content or you like Escape from Tarkov content, we've got some subscriber goals for the year. Trying to hit that 10K mark. Help us get there and stay up to date with the channel. We're posting stuff constantly. Multiple episodes each week, and thank you so much for all the support on the hardcore series. Everybody's really been loving it, and just appreciate that. The views, the comments, all that stuff really does help. Definitely motivates me and lets me know that you're enjoying it, so thank you so much. We do stream over on Twitch Fridays and Saturdays, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Sometimes we even record hardcore in the lives. Can't talk today. Over on Twitch, links in the description. We've got our Twitter, our Discord as well, so if you want to stay up to date with the channel, Discord is a good place to do that. Always post when we're going live, and throw out some solid things that we do in raids and other fun memes and such. So if you want to give us some follows over on socials, we'd appreciate that. With that, I'll close this one out. I've been Doc. We are the Average Gamer Guys. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next Escape from Tarkov video. Peace.